back, everyone, to part 2 of our Kobold Culture Capture featuring Thomas Bloom, our general manager. In the last episode, Thomas shared some of his journey with Kobold and the passion he has for building our success and our positive company culture. So we will go ahead and dive in to some of the things that he will be discussing, including challenges he's faced in shaping the culture, as well as how he measures the changes in progress he's made over the past 2 years. Thomas, thanks again for being here and for your continued commitment. And we'll get right into it.
Can you start by telling us any challenges or obstacles you've had along the way in implementing these changes and how you may have addressed them?
Yeah, no challenges, no obstacles. It's just been a piece of cake. No, let's see. Man, I guess obstacles and challenges. Obviously, being the new person, knowing that everything I introduced was going to be new, probably the biggest challenge was just ensuring that I did a good job of communicating what we were doing and why. Painting the bigger picture so that people could understand what was driving it. So that was probably the biggest challenge just for me. I'm naturally wired to be a change agent, so I don't often slow down and think through the what and the why. If I do, it's all in my head and I usually don't say it out loud. I knew I had to be pretty intentional about sharing both of those pieces for everybody. The other one would be just giving people the right amount of time to absorb all the changes. Me being here, many people on the team have been here for 10 plus years. A lot of them would always remind me, hey, remember, we're doing things that we haven't done in 20 plus years or 15 plus years or whatever it might be. So too much all at once would overwhelm people. And also as a reminder that it's going to take time. Most of the folks here love what they do and they're really good at what they do. So early on it was, well, why do we need to change? What's not been working? And it wasn't an indictment of any one person, but I wanted them to understand that we needed to change in order to grow, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And we talk in EOS terms about hitting the ceiling, that you have 3 options. You can die a quick, painful death, a slow, painful death, or you can break through the ceiling and keep growing. And I just told the group, I don't know about you, none of those first 2 sound very exciting to me. I'd rather see us succeed. So that was probably the biggest challenge. And I'm going to say it wasn't necessarily an obstacle, but again, everybody's wired differently in terms of how they handle and deal with change. So just giving everybody a reasonable amount of time to absorb it. But you can't give them unlimited time either. So it's kind of a balancing act, if you will.
Cool. Yeah. So putting in the effort to kind of build that understanding, but then give space and time for them to process what they've learned. And, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question. What role do you see social media playing in communicating and reinforcing these cultural changes, both internally and externally?
Yeah, that's a great question, Piper. Well, obviously, I think it's a pretty big role. That's part of why we're happy to have you on the team, because we were already doing some things here, and then it was time to start to tell the story. And really, for me, I see it as there's 2 reasons why we want to tell the story. First and foremost would be that people here get to know that what they're doing matters, and other people want to know what we're doing here. From the standpoint of maybe future employees, right? Or the second part that I'm really focused on is future customers or current customers. The world is changing. This time in our lives, I know specifically here at Kobold, we're a perfect example of this. We have 5 different generations of people all under one roof, which is actually pretty exciting. I think it's great that we have that much diversity in terms of our people on our team. And that means we can't just do a one-size-fits-all anymore. I recognize the fact that the folks entering the workforce, such as you and others, social media has influenced who you are as people. It's been around since your formative years. And so we need to find a way to use it so that we can engage you guys as well and anybody else out there at our future customers. So future engineers specifying our projects or our products, this is what they're used to seeing, right? So any way that we can reach them and show who we are and what we do and why they might want to choose working with us, social media is the way to do it. And again, what's nice is we can balance new and old approaches, but that to me is just, it's getting our story out there. Again, not that we're doing it in a braggy sort of way. We just want people to know who we are. We're authentic, we're transparent, and this is a little glimpse they can have into who Kobold USA really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's part of why we're sitting down here today, to put this out for everyone to get to know us a little bit more, tell our story in a different way. Obviously, you can post pictures and graphics and whatnot, but videos are a great form of content for people to get to know us more, our personalities, and kind of why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I will say I've really enjoyed working here and getting to tell that story. I feel like being involved in the culture and then also getting to express it to the world is really cool. It's very, very exciting.
Awesome.
All right. And next question. How do you measure the effectiveness of the cultural transformation efforts at Kobold, and what key metrics or KPIs do you track?
Right. So if you were here for part one, you heard me talk about Rabbit. So Rabbit is our tool where we have everybody give us feedback every week on our culture. So for sure, that's the first place I go to. The most common question everybody looks at is something they call the Net Promoter Score. So how likely are you to recommend us to a close friend or family member? And sometimes that wording gets people tripped up, but the idea is you're only going to recommend something to somebody that you trust or value if you think it's good, right? So the idea behind that question really rings true for me is, if we're doing things right here, I hope our team would want to share that with people that they trust the most, whether that's friends or family members or anybody else out in the community. So that for sure is always the first question I look at. I think the other metric or measure is just that overall level of engagement, right? Are people actively engaged in what we're doing? And it might sound crazy to some, but I would be more concerned when people are quiet and they're not saying anything. So when we have all employee meetings or when I walk around the building, if people aren't making comments, aren't asking questions, even if it's passionate displays of disagreements, I would be more concerned that isn't happening. So it's somewhat of an unofficial metric,
right?
But I would be concerned if I go a week or two and nobody's doing that. That would make me question, are they silently now starting to disengage? And have we done something, or have I done something that maybe has brought that about? So I always start with the data as my thread that I pull, and then I usually tend to dig a little bit deeper and talk to actual people and get validation so that I don't just look at the numbers as black and white.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the great thing about you measuring that in person is that you give us the opportunity to do that. So you will walk around and you'll check in with people, ask them how their day is, what's going on.
Yeah.
It's always a very open door culture here. So I really appreciate that. And I know a lot of the employees do as well. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. Probably the number one thing the team tells me is when I ask them if there's anything I can keep doing, start doing, or stop doing, everybody says keep doing that. So I'm glad it's received that well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. In what ways do you encourage employee engagement and participation in driving this cultural shift?
Right. Let's see. For sure, just straight up asking. Asking people to trust us. Even in asking people to do Rabbit, I kind of had to practice explain the what and the why behind it. And I said, look, this is anonymous. Why are we doing it? Well, you've heard me talk about culture, and this is a way for me to measure it. So you giving us the feedback anonymously, that's the only way I can help us get better. So that's certainly one way. And then really just sharing it with everybody when I'm walking around or when we're in all employee meetings, just reminding everybody that we're telling a story of everybody here, not just one or two people. So we want people to participate. I want people to see who we are. Everybody brings such a different view and personality to what we do here and how they do what they do here. I want people to see that because we're not perfect and we're not robots. So sorry if anybody's looking for a place to work where you're perfect and robots. That's not us, including me, right? So I want people to just put it out there. Like, don't be afraid. Part of that fail forward fast mentality again. Just give it a try. And if you don't like it, fine. And you don't have to do it, right? I think the other thing, and it's subtle, but it's important to me, anytime we do events, the only requirement I've given to the team that helps put those together, which they do a great job, by the way, my one rule was don't just do the same thing over and over again. Make sure that we're varying what we do and the format. Because some people like to do lots of extra and some people don't.
Right.
So that's okay. Let's honor and respect that. So do we just do a big team lunch and that's it? And we just talk and we move on? Do we have any fun events inside of work, outside of work? All those different types of things. Just keeping that variety gives people the ability to participate on their level. So I think that's important, because if you just do the same thing and that doesn't reach some of the people, they're never going to participate. So you kind of have to mix it up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's a really good mix of different like activities and events that we have in the office, out of the office. I think there's always an opportunity for someone to join in, whether it's just like food in the kitchen or going out and doing a community event like the community food bank.
Exactly.
So stuff like that. I think it's really cool that we have that opportunity to do it if we want.
Exactly. You got it.
All right. And how do you ensure alignment between the cultural transformation and initiatives and Kobold's core values and business objectives?
Right. I would say making sure that we're aligned. That's part of what our EOS structure helps bring to us. So we have a weekly leadership meeting, and then we have quarterly pulse meetings. So the weekly meetings definitely more tactical, and we're just moving the ball down the field, so to speak. The quarterly pulses, for sure, is our first alignment check. So we start by asking and reviewing, okay, what's our vision? What's our purpose? What are our goals? Where do we want to be by the end of the year? Where did we say we wanted to be by the end of this quarter? And inside of the numbers, there's always a cultural piece of that. So making sure that what we're doing is helping move the needle on the measures, right? Again, those values and those habits, it's how we do what we do. And if you're doing it right, it should show up in a hard number, whether that's sales, quote turnaround time, on-time delivery, whatever those typical business metrics are, those should be moving in a positive direction if you're doing the right things. Culture is always indirectly impacting those, so sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper to figure it out. But at the end of the day, when you step back at the end of a quarter or end of a year, you should see that that's moving in the right direction. So for me, that's probably the biggest way we do it, the leadership team and I, that we make sure that we're aligned. And then, as I mentioned before, having those small employee focus group meetings once a month that I do helps me double check that what I think up here is reaching everybody at wherever they're at. And so those small groups of 3 to 4 people, they're all from different departments. I ask everybody the same questions. I don't type any notes. I write everything down. It's anonymous. I don't share anything outside of that unless it's something I commit to doing for that group. And again, that's another way for me to just ask, hey, how are we doing on this? Here's what I think, but you guys tell me. So that's probably the 2 biggest ways I help ensure that we're staying in line with everything we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any specific success stories or examples you can share that highlight the positive impact of the culture here at Kobold?
Yeah. Let's see. I think to a couple of things. One that comes to mind in those small employee group sessions I talked about. One time I asked the question had something to do with that psychological safety or living your best work life theme. And one of the people in the group said they used to have a 5-minute commute to the previous job. And now to come here, I'm pretty sure they drive more than 30 minutes. I'm not sure exactly how long, but it's more than 30 minutes. And they said at that old job they had, the culture was so bad, they dreaded going there every single day, even though it only took them 5 minutes to get there. They dreaded it. And now here they are coming all the way to Kobold, 30 plus minutes, and they never worry or think, oh, I got to go to work today. They actually look forward to it.
Right.
Whether it's a Sunday night or Thursday night, doesn't matter. They look forward to being here because they know when they get here, they're going to be valued, they're going to be heard, they're going to get a chance to do what they do best with a team of people that they really like. So for me, again, just from a very practical level, the fact that somebody views the investment of their time and their own money to get here, and that's better than just taking something close to home is a big deal, right? Because that's really putting kind of your money where your mouth is. To say, no, I really am that deeply committed and loving what we're doing here in terms of the impact we're having. So that's a pretty positive one. And I'll also say I even saw it show up in some of the hard times. This year we've had some challenges. One of our teammates was out for long-term fighting cancer. Thankfully, she's healthy and she's back. That stretched a lot of people. And it was cool for me to see how our group rallied around that and came together. Not just from a supporting the employee who was going through it, but as a team, the work that was now left behind, everybody pitched in.
Right.
And that we didn't have to tell people to do it. They just naturally wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a huge notice that, we must be doing something right here, that we have a family style atmosphere, but a family with expectations as well. And I think that's a really interesting balance. And then even with the sudden passing of one of our teammates, which nobody can plan for, there's no handbook on how you deal with any of that stuff. Just watching how everybody even responded to that spoke volumes about the culture of the people that we have here and what we're building. So those are probably the three things that stick out in my mind. I'm sure there's more, I'm probably missing some, but those are the ones that I know I think about most often.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first one certainly resonates with me, and just like the fact that I don't dread coming here, and I wake up and I'm like, all right, time to go to work. Like, I'm excited, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, partly what I do is fun, so that helps.
Very true.
But I have the joy of working with you and pulling you into all of my content. So I really do enjoy it. And I agree with you on the other two parts. Everyone really came together and supported one another, and it was a very safe space for us. I felt that we were able to communicate how we were feeling, and kind of take that time to get ourselves together and compose ourselves. So
Awesome. That's great.
All right. And looking ahead, what are some of your future plans or aspirations for continuing to evolve and strengthen the company culture at Kobold?
Yeah, I would say in terms of future plans, obviously I want us just to continue to be a healthy organization. So both people-wise and numbers-wise. So as we grow, I think it's going to be important that growth we shouldn't sacrifice our true identity. So the culture and the values that we're doing right now, those have to stay there even when you get bigger, even when you do better. So I think for me, just trying to think about how do we maintain that, so that success doesn't kind of creep in and help cause a distraction and maybe get away from what got us there, type of a thing. And that sounds like a sports cliche analogy, because it is, but it's true. So I think that's definitely one. And I think, just watching the team continue to embrace it, and what things are we not doing today that we'll do in the future because it was their idea. We got this thing started, we have our values, we're going to continue to measure them and talk about them, but how we demonstrate them and how we celebrate them, I think just watching more people get involved and come up with new ideas or new ways to strengthen it or display it, to me, that's something I'm looking forward to. I never want culture to be about any one person, myself included. It's really all of us together. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen when more people get involved, as we have new people join. What ideas will they bring, experiences? To me, that's going to be pretty exciting to see what happens. That's probably the biggest thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I will say, I feel like the culture right now is set up in a way that there is so much potential in the future, and we can just continue to keep growing and keep making changes. And I think there's been a lot of growth already within the company of just people like being more accepting of change and sharing their ideas.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say I personally am someone who has a hard time talking about my ideas and sharing that stuff and communicating that. But coming in here, I felt very comfortable doing so, and it kind of like inspired me to make that change, and already started doing it 6 months in. So
love it.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, so that is everything we have for today. We hope you enjoyed all of our questions with Thomas, and thank you again for joining us. Yeah, really excited to see everyone's response, and make sure you tune in for future updates. And yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Piper, and thank you guys for watching.